Welcome to the discussion portion of the playthrough for Warsaw, the City of Ruins. In Europe, I believe it was actually called Cities. But
yeah,
I get why they renamed it here in the U.S. because there's a lot of video games and board games that kind of use cities, so you wanted it to stick out a little bit more. But it's kind of a tile placement game that does try to at least teach you kind of the evolution and the growth of the city of Warsaw.
Was the original European version where it was just called Cities, was it still as heavily focused on Warsaw?
I believe
half
so.
the tiles in this game are like landmarks from around Warsaw. So
I believe so.
It seems weird that they would make it more generalized than that when it's clearly about Warsaw.
Yeah. But that might have just been a translation thing too, where in Polish it turned out.
Is this a Polish game? I mean, it would make sense.
I think so. I believe so. So North Star Games brought it over and localized it. And it's just one of those games where my first impression of it is I actually like it. It's more definitely not a heavier game, but it fits that niche where it's almost like what I call a beer drinking game where it's less of playing the game and more of just chilling out with friends.
It's what I kind of call like a filler game, or a palate cleanser is what some people call them. Just a simple game that doesn't take very long, that is still kind of fun to play. And I can definitely see it's very simple, but there are some layers to it, and there's a lot of strategy involved in placing your tiles and building your district if you really want a high score.
Yeah, like I know Russ isn't here for this episode, but he super loves this game because I wouldn't say super, but I know he loves this game, and it fits how he plays, because he's always strategizing, seeing, how can I get this to
finding
go
combos and things, and there's a lot of comboing in this game, especially when you're getting the government tiles, because the government tiles kind of dictate your play and how you're going to build your city. So if you get a couple of those early, you can really capitalize on them in later rounds. So yeah, definitely it fits that whole. If you like finding nice combos and exploiting them in your games, then this is definitely one of those games.
And one of the minor things that I like about this game, and it's probably one of the stupidest things to like about this game, is that as you play, you can actually clean up the game as you play the game, because what's cool about it is the insert, it has spots for each of the ages and your starting player card. So when you're done with that age, you just throw whatever you have left over or people are discarding to get their coins, just throw it back in the box, and then when you're done with the game, it's almost all ready to just throw back on the shelf and you're done and good to go.
Yeah, that's definitely something that appeals to me when I have games. A lot of games you just can't do that.
Yeah, like,
this is definitely one of
how
those
about your
where,
game of Eclipse?
I mean, some of that actually you can kind of put away while you're going, like some of the tiles and the enemy the NPC ships, you put them back in the insert and then it just goes right back in the box. But most of it you can't do that.
Yeah.
So this is nice.
Yeah. So Ken, what was your impression the first time you kind of played this?
So it's a drafting game and it's a tile placement game and it's pretty dry and boring. It's fine. It does what is promised as a drafting and tile laying game.
But it's not like really itching your...
Yeah, it didn't really... I mean, like the theme... When you start looking through the rule book, the theme starts to kind of come through because for those on the video, half this book is talking about the specific unique tiles like these, and then it gives you a small history lesson on what that is, and that is kind of neat, but without that, it all feels like just you're looking to match up colors and shapes, and you get these occasional random things that have a special ability, which is fine unless you're colorblind.
Yeah,
which I'm not, but one of the guys, when I played it the other day, we were playing with a friend Scott, and he is colorblind, and just looking at it from the outset, I went, well, this game's going to be a nightmare for Scott. And he kind of looked and he was like, looking at the starting tile, that's the half green and half red one, and on that one specifically, there's a good like unique identifier that there's like a path going through the green parks that the red buildings don't have. And he went, oh, I think that they're doing something to distinguish it with a shape. I think I'll be fine. And I was like, yeah, maybe. And by about the end of the first age, he was like, "Going, I have no idea. I
Let
can't
alone
tell
what
this is."
other people were doing in their
and,
cities.
And like thinking about it from his point of view, which he said he was like, I mean, every scoring phase, someone had to kind of help him to some degree. But thinking about it, it's like I could look over and I've got my hand of things, and I look over at Jared and I say, "Hey, Jared's really focusing on getting those points for purple." And he's got like a special ability tile that will give him even more points for purple. I should not do that. I should slide him some red. If for whatever reason I have a hard time identifying purple in my hand, I'm going to have a really hard time identifying it over there across the table.
Somebody else's table.
And that sort of thing, like it's going to really hamper your strategy. It seems like this game is, you're not going to play it. Like you're not going to want to. It just seems like it'd be more trouble than it's worth if you are colorblind. I feel like there's, drafting games with cards that have different abilities, or there's tile laying games that focus more on shapes and stuff than colors. And this one depends heavily on generic shapes with colors that would bleed. And feeling bad for my friend while we're playing it didn't help my opinion of the game. It was, I like playing it. I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for Scott over there. He's drowning in a sea of gray.
Yeah, like I feel bad too because like especially with Scott, we were at a board game convention and we were just like hanging out and he was like, "Hey, how about we just play a quick game?" I'm like, "Well, this is sort of a quick game," not thinking about it. And right when we were setting up, like, "Oh crap!"
The greens and the reds, and the blues and the purples.
I know I did call it out right at the start there. Was like, I think it's going to be a problem. And he was pretty sure that it wouldn't. And then it definitely was.
Yeah.
And didn't you say that our game ended up being one of the longer ones you've seen played? There's a really good possibility that factored into it.
Yeah, because that was the crazy part is when we first played the game, when we saw on the box it said 60 minutes, we're like, oh, this might be...
Is this really going to take 60 minutes? I mean, the first like round it felt like 5 minutes maybe. It's not going to take an hour to get through all that. And the later rounds get a little longer because you're sitting there thinking and strategizing. And maybe, after multiple playthroughs, the strategy is a little heavier and it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
But I have a really hard time seeing this game take an hour.
Yeah.
I could see there's just enough depth to the game. And there's just enough strategy that if you've got someone who's really AP prone, I could see it just wrecking them because you've only got a total of 12 squares that you can place down. So by the time that, so you get 4, assuming that you actually get 3 of the tiles because you have to buy them or whatever, assuming that you get 3 of the tiles from each age, by the last 2 ages, you're having to cover your tiles. You're having to possibly adjust your strategy. Like, you only have that one specific grid, so every tile needs to matter, and not all of the tiles interact with each other in the best ways. Like there was someone at our table, I can't remember which one it was. It seemed like they were mulling over every single tile and where they'd want to place it. And that's fine. But for guys who are a little faster like myself, that it was like, all right, yeah, sure, this will work. All right, cool, I think this will be fine. I just don't take games as seriously most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit easier for me to just grab one and pass it and go with it, and make sure that it's, give it that cursory, hey, this will benefit me at all, rather than this will benefit me maximum. And I can see where AP could draw the game out a bit. The game itself on its own mechanics, no, there's no way. if you've got people who are familiar with it and kind of know what they're doing, no way.
So I was actually talking to our other buddy Ben on the way home from the convention last night about this game specifically, and he was talking about how he really, really liked this game. And I kind of came to the realization that some people like games for certain reasons and other people like them for other ones. Like me, when I play board games, I'm there to have fun and like have a thrill almost. That's why I like games like Blood Rage or Champions of Midgard or something that's really heavy on theme that's also really exciting.
Yeah, it's like the thing of like watching an exciting movie. There's an amount of escapism.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
kind of in that same
It's sort
boat.
of like
That's why
board
I like,
game thrill seeking in a way.
Yeah.
And our buddy, he really liked it, but that's because when he plays games, he's drawn to like the puzzle aspect of it,
Yeah.
you know, and solving the puzzle, sort of like doing Sudoku, you know, like he gets enjoyment out of that.
You know, Ben might have been the one that was going a little slower
Yeah,
at our
maybe.
table. With passing it around, I wasn't paying that much attention to who was going
Right.
fast or slow, but I know that there was a couple of times that I was like, all right, there we go. We're still mid-round. Like, where's the rest of my tiles?
Yeah.
You know?
But this is very much a puzzle game because you're
Absolutely.
taking pieces and you're putting them down and putting them together. So that's what really does it for you in a board game. I mean, this is the game for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe we don't like the game as much because, you know, we're kind of thrill-seeking board gamers and we're not into the puzzle. I mean, I like the puzzle. I like
Yeah.
sitting down and I like doing the puzzle. I can enjoy it. But that's not the reason I like to get together and play board games with you guys.
And with me, if there's a puzzle, I want there to be something more than 2 points at the end of it. You know,
Right, yeah.
that's not an interesting enough reward to me. But I mean, like you said, Russ really likes this,
Yeah.
and it is that finding a
yeah.
puzzle, that optimizing, that maximizing, that finding combos, all of that, using limited resources in the best way
yeah,
that
the
you
best you
can.
can.
That's Russ all the way, and that's Ben. I mean, there's absolutely an awesome audience for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Unfortunately, the guys talking about it might not be that.
the funny thing is, as I played it, I think this game actually is one of those few games where the fewer players you have, like I think 3 is probably the most optimal play for this because you're not using all the tiles in the stack. When you
Oh,
play with
yeah.
4, you use all the tiles in the stack, so the chances of you seeing a tile that you want are a little bit higher. But when you're doing 3, 4 of those tiles that are in the stack never show up in the game at all. So
Yeah.
you're forced to make those decisions.
Yeah, and once you've played the game enough, you would eventually know what tiles are in what stack because there's no variability to them at all. If you're playing with 4 players, you're playing with all the tiles in the game. You'll see them all. Either someone will discard them or they'll put them in their city. You would, after probably 10 or 12 playthroughs of the game, know what all the tiles are in the stacks.
Yeah, I kind of don't see this game. I mean, unless you've got a group of 3 or 4 guys who are really enthusiastic about this game, I could see it having a lot of replayability. Otherwise, I think it's going to be show a newer player, and for the most part, it's going to be like if I'm experienced, I know that like the blue areas don't appear until the 3rd age. I don't think purples appear till the 2nd age.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can kind of plan around, hey, you know, blue areas work well with this, so I'll save this part of my city for the blue tiles. So
Yep.
I think that prior knowledge would be, it would almost be an unbeatable advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely see this being a game that you would try to bring people who aren't familiar with gaming into the hobby. You know, this is a
Yeah.
gateway game in a lot of ways. Once you've played it enough and you've got an established board game group, I don't think you're going to keep playing this game. I think you're going to move on. If you love Euro games, you're going to move on to something a little more heavy, maybe like Agricola or something like that. And this game will just be there to fill that niche.
Yeah. I like this as a beginner game a little bit better than Seven Wonders because it's easier to kind of explain to people in terms of your resource. Like with the cost and stuff, I know with Seven Wonders, for me, the first time I played, it was so hard for me to wrap my head around like, oh, those cards are producing that resource for the next time. Where this, you're handing them a coin and saying you have to spend that coin to do it.
Yeah.
Where you know, like I think there's enough game for people to kind of say, hey, I like playing games and I want to explore a little bit more. And it, you know, it's easier to teach a little bit.
Yeah,
than
it's
Seven
far
Wonders.
enough removed from games like Monopoly and stuff that people are going to be like, oh, this is a different type of game. I might really like board games.
You could definitely use this to introduce them to the idea, like the mechanic of drafting, the mechanic of tile laying, of the cramped nature of limited resources, that sort of thing. And I definitely feel like this clicked for me way better than Seven Wonders. I've only ever played Seven Wonders once, and it was like I was swimming through a sea of confusion. and it, like, I played with you guys who were all familiar with the game, and it was all right. I have no idea what just happened, but there goes an hour. Like, I got totally decimated because I didn't understand what I was even trying to do. This game definitely clicked better, and I felt like it wasn't too big of a deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit to the rule book, Jared, we always like to give people our impressions of the rule book, and you are our rules guy. How would you compare this rule book to some of the other ones that we've talked about?
This is hands down the best rule book that I've seen for a game that we have reviewed so far. And the main reason is because I think it's a simple game. There's not a lot to it, so the rule book is very basic. But when you brought it to us and you were like, I want to learn how to play this game, I took it and I read it. It took me probably about 15, 20 minutes to get through it. And by the time I was done, I felt like I'd played through the game one time. I already knew how to play the game.
Looking just at the rules, you've got, a half page on the front, another 3, and better part of a half page. And then you get into the thinly veiled history lesson, which
Covers
this
like
is
6 or 7 pages.
Yeah, this is where the theme of the game really comes through, which it's kind of cool. I would really, really not enjoy playing with someone who looks up this. This here is the rules section, which is one sentence, for Warsaw Rising Museum. One sentence of rules, and then you've got an entire paragraph of history. Playing with someone who wants to read all of that would be taxing to say the least. But it's cool that it's there.
Yeah.
It adds something else to the game, and that alone could actually give the game some longevity. I haven't read through all of the history pieces, but I could see even a version of hey, we've gotten pretty good at this game. Let's see who can build something that's historically accurate or maximizing the idea behind, whatever the buildings were supposed to be when they were constructed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually liked having that second half because, some of the text on these cards,
it's very basic,
minimal,
yeah, but they do a good job of it explaining in the back of the book.
Of clarifying, when you've got just a little bit of symbolism, a lot of these tiles have something and then an arrow and then a result, which a lot of the time is enough, but you get those questions where you want a little bit of clarity, and it does a great job of clearing that up.
Yeah. One of my biggest complaints about the game, though, I'll have to say, is the scoring track.
Yeah. Have we ever played a game that we haven't gone over 50?
Oh, no. We played games where someone's almost gone around it twice. There's nothing to indicate that you've gone around it once or gone around it twice. And I think someone's gotten close to getting lapped when we've played.
Yes,
and
almost
I'm like,
every game we played, somebody's
I know
almost
the board is only so big, but man, it could have gone to 100.
Yeah, or maybe an extra, there's plus 100, plus 50 tokens that you see.
Simple as that, but definitely that's
all right. So before we go, just your guys' overall impressions of the games and if you would recommend it or not.
I would recommend it to somebody if they like playing Euro games, and if they're looking for a game to get people into the hobby, maybe even if you're looking for a game to teach your kids or something like that.
Yeah, I could see this great in a European history class.
Yeah, if you're looking for something like we were talking about, like a thrill, probably not the game for you. But if you're just looking for a puzzle game or something that's really simple, I would recommend it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're looking to teach someone some of the basics of, like I said, drafting, tile placement, a little bit of resource management, this is fine. You could do much, much worse. I don't see a version of me ever suggesting to play it. I really didn't enjoy it. And if whoever you're teaching it to is colorblind, you're really just
You want to try something
that's bullying. At a certain point, that's just mean.
Yeah. Like I said, I would recommend this if it's kind of more of people who think board games are just Monopoly and those classic games. This is a good way to intro them into the drafting concept. I feel like this is one of those better ones because it's not as comboed and layered where you throw somebody into some of these heavier drafting ones, they might not like board gaming ever again.
Yeah, it's true.
So one of those intro ones, or if it's at the end of the night where all of us are just brain dead, but we don't want to end the night yet and just want to hang around and really, when I'm at that point, I don't care if I win or not. I just want to chill with my buddies. I would suggest throwing this out and just
And aside from
with that.
our opinions here,
Yeah.
I mean, Russ really liked this game. Our other buddy Ben really liked this game. So there's definitely people out there who
Yep.
do like this game, even though we're not necessarily representative
I
of
think
that group.
Zach kind of likes it too. Like,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Zach loved it. I knew he would.
He was
the
always a
minute I
fan
read
of
the thing.
overbuilding too, like just
Yeah,
placing
I-
tiles above.
Yeah.
I know when I watch board game reviews, I always try and listen to what the complaints are rather than just the complaint, because there's plenty of board game reviewers that they say, oh, all you're doing is chucking dice. I hate it. It's just random. And I go, I really like chucking dice. So that's fine. If they
That's
don't
totally
like
fine.
it. They presented me with the reason that they don't like it, and that reason is exactly why I would like it. So if the things that I don't like or that Jared doesn't like about the game, if those are things that you do like or that sound interesting to you, absolutely. Like, it's not like there's not like a design flaw that makes the game unplayable. It's not broken in any way. It just isn't really my thing.
Yeah. And then, so one last mechanic that I wanted to ask you guys about is the World War I and World War II mechanics where you have to remove one or two tiles. Like, how'd you like that? I like that where it kind of mixed it in a little bit. So, like, if, somebody who had a good base at the beginning, if they don't plan for it, that could totally wreck their strategy.
Yeah,
going
I
forward.
initially thought that it was just kind of like a mechanic that they squoze in there to try to get some more theme into the game. But after playing it a couple times, I realized that it's more there to switch things up in the middle of the game to add some variability, because forcing you to destroy one of your tiles is big.
Yeah, especially if
force
they're
you to
overbuilt
destroy-
because
Yeah.
you
I
could be
really-
discarding 2 or 3 tiles.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned that in the rules explanation, but if you
No, I
have an
didn't.
overbuild and you blow that up, you blow up everything. You don't get to redo your bottom tile.
Yeah.
I think that it's kind of a double-edged sword with the removal. It gives an experienced player a chance to maybe take back part of their strategy that has changed and modify that. With a newer player, if you're new and you feel like, yeah, I'm really getting this, it's really clicking, taking away one of it just feels like a punishment.
It
like
does, yeah.
But for experienced players, it's just a double-edged sword. I see why they did it, both theme-wise and to create another layer of depth to the overall game. But it's that's going to be a very individual results vary
That's
type
true,
of
yeah.
type of feeling, I think.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you so much for talking to us about Warsaw. Full disclaimer, this copy was provided to us by North Star Games, but they did not sponsor this video. So as you can see,
And if they did, they'd want their money back.
They made a poor decision.
all our thoughts are our own, and we hope you guys enjoyed our discussion on Warsaw. Please, please, please subscribe, like the video, and head on over to the PlayThru.net and check out some of our other reviews of all the videos. And one thing I can guarantee you is every episode will have this beautiful face here teaching you how to play. So until next time, guys, we'll see you on the PlayThru.